of 5 dead cops in Dallas is a high score that 2 million gangbangers want to beat. Around the world. They've stopped there. Around the world. It's not heaven in Canada. Why can't we be like Canada? Everybody loves Canadian Mountie, right? Everybody loves Canadian Mountie. Red suit, funny hat, up north, but not Santa Claus. No. My brother on the Mountie, God bless him. Those are 4 Mounties, ambushed murdered in Maricopa a few years back. The following year, 3 Mounties, ambushed murdered in Moncton. So around the planet, internally, the threat's horrendous. Our cops are pulling back. Instead of taking on the U.S. Marshals fugitive task forces, they went from taking down 2, 3, 4 bad guys a day to 1 every 2 days. Because so many marshals were dying in the process, they had completely changed their dynamics. And now we've got the Ferguson effect, and cops are throttling back. Why should I risk everything I have taking down some dirtbag who probably be killed by another dirtbag later anyway? And that's hard. That's hard for cops to have to make those kind of decisions. Well, let's change gears now and talk about the external threat. What is the next 9/11 going to look like? Well, folks, cops are pretty good at predicting future behavior based on past behavior. A serial killer has an MO. A buying torture killed the last 3 victims. What do you want to bet? He'll do the same. If we can predict future behavior based on past behavior, what the terrorists are most likely to do is to come kill our children. Folks, I had the honor of writing a book called Innocent Targets When Terrorism Comes to School. The author of this book is Chief Michael Dorn. Mike Dorn is a definitive international expert on school safety. He's outlined terrorist attacks in schools around the planet. Since the book came out, there have been thousands, no exaggeration, I will show you, thousands and thousands of additional attacks on schools around the planet. Our story begins in Israel with a bus massacre. One of the very first things it did, get on a bus and kill the kids. From that day on, every school bus in Israel had armed drivers and armed grandparents on board. There's parts of Israel with armored buses. But folks, here's what happened 3 months ago in Italy. An immigrant bus driver with a can of gas and a knife hijacked an Italian bus with 51 children on board, soaked it with gas and torched it off. How many saw that in the news? Yeah. Why wasn't that headline news? Why didn't we all hear about that one? One little blip on Fox, nobody else even mentioned it. Oh, you can't kill a terrorist act with a can of gas. Hey, our problem is guns. And so they simply censor it. But folks, the Italians were brilliant. Bus loaded 51 kids. The bus was soaked with gas. One of the kids, on his cell phone, told the cops, he soaked the bus with gas, he says we're all going to die. They had a roadblock and fire trucks everywhere. And they hammered this with fire trucks from every side. Well, cops broke every window, yanked kids out of the window. Not a single kid died. Now, the terrorist's failure, he didn't soak the kids with gas. He thought they'd be trapped, he thought they'd die, he was wrong. The next one will fix that problem. But folks, all you need is a can of gas. And this is a lesson that every cop in America should be looking at and thinking about, and it didn't even get in the freaking news. And so folks, this is just enraging. But again, when we go back to the book, around the planet, we see massacres in schools as the norm. Folks, there's a UN report, Boko Haram. You all heard of Boko Haram? Boko means book, any book other than the Quran in general. And Haram means forbidden, evil. It's a religious word. The most common translation of Boko Haram, Western schooling, is evil. And in one little part, or one little nation, they murdered over 2,000 teachers. How many else saw that in the news? One little part, or one little nation. Boko Haram is nailing people with crossbows in Africa. They've destroyed, since 2014 alone, they've destroyed 1,500 schools. You heard of the Nigerian schoolgirls? Where'd they come from? Schools. They hit a school, they murder every child, they murder every adult except the girls. They declare the girls brides, they can have all the brides they want, they rape the girls, and they go to the next school, and they do it again and again and again. One little part of one little nation. Here's another UN report in Afghanistan. Folks, in 2009 alone, 613 attacks on schools, at least. These are the ones we know about. 600 attacks on schools in Afghanistan in 1 year. their own kids in their own school in their own nation. You think they won't do it to us? Folks, let's go back to that bus massacre. There's 500,000 school buses in America. Wipe out all the kids on one bus. The next day, not a parent in the nation will put the kids on the bus. How do you get armed security on 500,000 school buses tomorrow morning? Well, I trained the Oklahoma Sheriff's Association a while back. They told me they got a plan. I mean, they got a plan that they fully intend to execute. They tell me they can put a grandpa with a deer rifle on every school bus in Oklahoma tomorrow morning. What's your plan? Folks, you never win by taking away rights. That's the Israeli model. There aren't enough cops on the planet to put one on every bus. Either you transform your way of life and the enemy wins, or you empower your citizens. There is no other answer. Let them destroy our way of life, shut down 500,000 buses, or empower the grandfathers and grandmas and aunts and uncles and parents to be on those buses. Well, I was trained in upstate Michigan. I told my Oklahoma getting a grandpa with a deer rifle in every school bus. They said, hell, that's nothing. In upstate Michigan, we'll put a granny with a deer rifle in every school bus. What's your plan? You never win by taking away rights. You win by giving them more rights. Give them the right to protect themselves. Well, folks, let's look at one more school massacre. Peshawar, Pakistan, 141 dead, an entire school wiped out. Over 130 dead children. And this is first grade through 11th grade. Now, folks, they did it 600 times a year in Afghanistan. They did it one time in Pakistan. We badly need Pakistan's help in Afghanistan. For an enemy to find refuge across the border is going to make it harder. Look this up, Pakistan school massacre. What's important, half the attackers were, quote, Arab terrorists. The closest Arab population is Iraq, over 1,000 miles away. Or a bunch of Arabs doing helping to wipe out a school in Pakistan, 1,000 miles from the closest Arab population, and you can make a very good argument. That's Al-Qaeda's calling card. Arabs on board is Al-Qaeda, and they send a message. You cooperate with America, and we will do this through you every day. There was a regime change in Pakistan that did not go in our favor. Wipe out one school and send a message, folks. And then they did it to Russia. And folks, when I teach just educators, I do a lot of that. I teach whole school districts. I'm very careful what I teach them, and we can really move them around. We can empower them and equip them. As I will show you, the ultimate solution is education. We can empower our educators. August is the primary time for in-service training for educators. And just last couple of weeks, I've done 3 in-service training, entire auditorium, 1,000-odd educators. And thunderous ovation, 2 out of 3 times a standing ovation. People say, I've seen in-service training with educators 30 years, never saw a standing ovation. Well, we can empower them, we give them where to live. But when I talk to them, I don't talk about best land. It's too hard. They're hard crashes. But right now, we're going for a cop ride. The educators out there, buckle your seatbelt. We just want to roll it out. Because this is who we're fighting, folks. This is what they do. September 1st, 2014. The threat through 4. Every school in Russia opens on the same day. The author of this book is John Guylock. He's our nation's leading trainer of Russian spec ops. He and I have worked together for 20 years. Since the wall came down, he's been in Russia continuously. He was there on the 3rd day when it came down. And within a couple of months, he wrote the book. Immediately, somebody bought a website full of mom as a wannabe and wanted everywhere in the website to shut this guy down. Over a decade later, they're still working full-time to shut it down. Even the goofballs on the website figure out something's wrong here. I don't care how mad you are. You don't keep doing it. Over a decade later, and I can personally vouch for the fact that everything they say about him is not true. But the amount of effort and time and energy that went to closing down this book, they tried to burn his house down as he wrote this book. And nobody says it's not true. They just don't want it out there. And so, folks, I think it's terribly important to understand what was happening there. Every school in Russia was on the same day. It's really neat idea. It's a national day of celebration. Some of you may have heard that Beslan was a middle school. In Russia, a middle school means 1st grade through 11th grade. And the bigger kids are too cool for this. Beslan, B-E-S-L-A-N. Now, The kids are out front, a handful of high schoolers, a handful of middle schoolers, and mostly elementary. They're too cool for this. Mommies are there, babies and preschoolers, and there are very few daddies there. In this northern courtyard, on September 1st. The terrorists had people ahead of time with concealed weapons ready to block the exits. Several vehicles full of terrorists pull out, bail out, and fire over the heads of the children. The kids are herded into the gym. They're fleeing. They're herded like cattle. They know you go on one side of the gym, you go out the other side of the gym to escape. 1,000 kids flee into the gym, but the exits are blocked by a handful of terrorists in place at a time with concealed weapons. They go in, they don't go out. Now this is really a critical point, folks. For the first 5-10 minutes, half the perimeter is held by a handful of terrorists in place at a time with concealed weapons. One or two well-trained people, concealed weapons in the crowd, could have shot the idiot blocking the exit, and the hostages could have escaped like air on a balloon. Do you understand that? Because they do. They understand it very well. That's why they can't do this to Israel. They would do this daily to Israel if they could. Faced with this threat for 3/4 of a century, Israel's found the only answer. Armed people everywhere charging to the sound of guns. Sometimes called the swarm tactic. Like a swarm of angry bees, everybody has a stinger, and everybody charges toward the danger, and it works. Folks, our enemy only fears one thing. The domestic terrorists, the international terrorists, the kid, the wacko, many of them are truly suicidal. Many of them truly do not fear death, but they desperately fear failure. And if there's somebody there that can shoot back, odds are really good they're not going there. And when we identify the places where people can't shoot back, our schools and our daycares are at the top of that list. But folks, this is what they fear. I'm going to give you the full specifics on this matter. This is what they fear. May of 2015, Garland, Texas. Draw the Prophet Muhammad Art Festival. In the eyes of Islam, to draw the Prophet is a terrible crime. They're afraid to drop bad guys, and it did. 2 art critics from Arizona showed up with AK-47s. They had body armor, they had rifles. They rolled out of the vehicle. It could have been the Post nightclub times 2. A 59-year-old traffic cop with a pistol killed them both. One of the greatest acts of valor and marksmanship in American history. This is what they fear. They desperately do not want to die for nothing. They will seek the weak link. They will seek the places where people can't shoot back. They will seek people who can't fight back. And that starts with our children. This is who they are. This is what they do. And this is what they fear. Go back to Bethlehem. 1,000 kids are trapped in the gym. They will live and suffer and die in this gym for the next 3 days. Every adult male is dead in the first half hour. If you're an adult male in a situation like this, you fight from the beginning. Because you will die on your knees in front of your children's eyes in the first half hour. And then for the next 3 days, they went about the process of torturing the children to death. By the easiest manner, no water. Easiest way in the world to kill them. You'll set them down, give them no water. On the 4th day, they're all dead. Now this is a school. There's water fountains and bathrooms everywhere. The Russians were delivering cases of bottled water to the children, and they wouldn't give them a drop. They set the bottles of water in front of the children to torment them. Nobody in this room was gone 24 hours without a drop of hydration. What's it feel like on the 3rd day? We cannot imagine the agony these children are in. One more day and they're all dead. But they knew the Russians wouldn't give them that day. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Russian Tier 1 Spec Ops, their Delta Force, and their SEAL Team 6, Alpha and Beta, were fully on scene. They had just arrived. Now the terrorists have been busy little peepers. They never stopped hardening the target. They barricaded and booby-trapped every ground floor entrance. They barricaded and booby-trapped every ground floor window except the windows to the gym. On a previous attack in the Nordost Theater, the Russians had used gas on them. Our enemy's always learning, they're always evolving. They didn't want to use gas again, so they kept all the kids in the gym, bust out all the windows on all sides, you get a flow there. Other than that, it was physically impossible to get a ground floor entrance. On the morning of the 3rd day, time is no longer their side. The Russian Spec Ops had just arrived. The gym the kids are trapped in is exactly the size of a regulation basketball court. You ever go to those basketball courts, you nail the backboard to the wall with a small spacer, go a few inches out of bounds, you hit the wall? That's your gym. 1,000 kids are packed in a huge bomb is strapped to the huge basketball backboards. On the morning of the third day, one of the bombs strapped to the backboard went off, blasting children out the windows. 6 seconds later, the bomb on the other backboard went off, blasting more kids out the windows. Was it an accident? Could have been. The bomb was rigged to a dead man switch, a foot pedal. Take your foot in the pedal, the bomb goes off. I believe with all my heart it was on purpose. It was perfect timing. The Russian Tier 1 spec ops were caught completely unprepared, without a plan. You don't just roll up the vehicle and attack. Without body armor in many cases, without helmets in many cases, without a plan, they simply charged in every direction. To slaughter the kids, we got to go in. It was a 10-hour room-to-room nightmare. It was a 10-hour room-to-room nightmare. When the smoke finally cleared, 10 hours later, they believed 49 terrorists had neutralized one way or the other. Now, folks, the official Russian report is less than this. But the spec ops guys, John Guide I work with, told them they believe a good portion of these folks get out. They don't usually get people out. Why would they get these guys out? You make a very good argument they will be the cell leaders for future attacks. 13 of Russia's most elite spec ops were dead. Over 100 were wounded. Imagine Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, FBI, HRT having over 100 casualties, one operation. And the hostages, the final count from Russia tells us 314 of the hostages have been murdered. The vast majority of them elementary age children. And you know what killed them? The bombs? No. The guns? No. Somebody somehow lit the gym on fire. 1,000 kids are trapped in a burning building, and the terrorists from these second-floor windows just gunned down over their tried to escape. 1,000 kids trapped in a burning building, and the terrorists gunned down over their tried to escape. Of the 314 hostages murdered, over 200 were killed by the fire, or crushed to death when the roof collapsed because of the fire. There was a fire truck on scene, and they refused to go in. Worldwide, if people were shooting, we don't go in. Worldwide, that policy is changing. But they kicked the fire guy's tail and took his truck. What would you do? A couple of very brave individuals rolled this truck, this fire truck, right up here. They grab the hose. They go to put the fire out. A very brave man exposes himself. But the tank was empty. Would you have thought that? Would you have coordinated up a fire truck, topped off of water the third day? I would have never thought of it. We can learn from their example, folks. And you've got to integrate firefighting in at every level. They will soak a bus with children and light it off. We've got to integrate firefighting in at every level. It's a critical part of who we are and what we do. And folks, when I teach my security teams, my safety teams, we tell them, everybody take that fire extinguisher off the wall. See how it comes off the wall? They're all different. Go outside, pass around, and take a couple of shots with it. You would not go to war with a pistol you never fired in your life. A kind of weapon you never fired. But integrate firefighting at every level. Over 1,000 were hospitalized. And the survivors would rather be dead. The people sat in the perimeter did nothing for 3 days, but the children were tortured and murdered. They wished they were dead. The suicides rack up on a steady basis. And a nation is stunned to their soul. Is that what military was? We don't know. But I'll tell you this, folks, they're mad. We've been hunting them down around the planet and whacking them everywhere they go. They cannot be deterred. The Russians were deterred. The price of war is too high. These people cannot be deterred. They can only hunt it down and stop. And around the planet, we whack them with hellfire missiles from predators and reapers. Get it? Hellfire missiles, the fires of hell. We make a religious statement every time we whack them. We don't even get it. They get it. They're mad. They want to hurt us. They want to hurt us bad. And around the planet, the military shut them down and kept them off our back. More about that later on. But folks, the Nordost Theater was all Chechens. This one, it was about half Arab terrorists. Once again, what were a bunch of Arabs doing? Helping to wipe out a school in Russia. Very good indicator. Al-Qaeda had their hand all over that. And Osama bin Laden promised us Russia is their future. Bin Laden was number 2 man back in the day, told us they owe us 2 million dead kids just to even the score. In their book, they owe us 2 million dead kids just to even the score. So we don't know the future, folks. Well, we all heard the posse comitatus. You know, by law, the U.S. military cannot get involved on American soil. We are the only nation on the planet that plays by that rule. With the exception of the National Guard and the Coast Guard, they ain't showing up no time soon. The U.S. military can't get involved. Who did we give the mission to? Our cops. Folks, we have given the mission that elite military, elite tactical teams have around the planet, the police. And like Israel, under the Second Amendment, we also have armed citizens who can make a difference at the moment of truth. Why did it take 3 days for the Russian Tier 1 spec ops to show up? 1 or 2 rifle-armed first responders in the first 5 minutes, and the hostages could have escaped like air out of a balloon. Why did they give them 3 days to harden the target and torture and murder the victims? Why didn't the cops go in right away? Why? Because it wasn't their job. We don't understand, folks. Around the planet, they don't have the money we do. They don't have the resources we do. A good chunk of the Russian police got goofy little tear gas pistols. The ones with real guns, most of them never fired more than 50 rounds in their life. Nobody even for a second expected the cops to go in. They were elite for the elite military team to show up. And around the world, that's the norm. Now, folks, we got 69 dead in a youth camp in Norway. Remember that one? Now, folks, the McVeigh massacre, 59 dead. Why? We don't know. It's just an evil, sick son of a bitch. There's more of those evil, sick bastards all the time. I'll tell you one thing about that guy. He threw away his hard drive. He did not want us to know what was on his hard drive. We've seen that once before, the Virginia Tech killer. But the Virginia Tech killer told us, his roommate told us what the hard drive. Violent video games, every second of every day in the murder simulator. And I'll bet you anything you want that this guy is rehearsing his massacre on simulators over and over again. But folks, this Norway killer, one of the McVeigh massacres happened. The media said, by the way, the all-time record solo gun massacre was in Norway. They said, if we had no Norwegian laws, we could stop that round. Oh, you can't. But this guy flat said he trained on video games for a year to commit his crime. He dropped out of life and immersed himself for a year in the murder simulator. And folks, the cop on the island didn't even have a gun. He was the first one to die. You local yokels don't need a gun, you just hurt yourself. We got a federal team standing by. An hour and a half later, the feds finally showed up. That theater in France, remember that theater massacre in France? How'd those gun laws work out for France? How'd that work out for them? They've been trying to confiscate every gun for 50 years. How'd that work out? The director of Interpol, when all those France massacres were happening, the director of Interpol said, you have to ask yourself if this crime would have happened in Dallas. But folks, 6 months after the theater massacre, the full story came out. They told the local cops, don't go in, you'll be slaughtered. Don't have the training, don't have the weapons. An hour later, the federal team shows up and goes in. And they owned that theater for an hour. And they tortured and murdered and mutilated every person in that theater for an hour, waiting for that federal team to show up. England. What in the hell is unarmed cops supposed to do for you in England? You cannot call 100 people police. But the Westminster Palace was attacked by a man with a knife taped to both fists, charging 2 unarmed cops at the front door of Westminster Palace last year. One of them stabbed to death, the other one ran away. What's he supposed to do? Grab out the little bitty club, it's called a truncheon. What's he supposed to do? 2 supervisors in a car locked the door and hid. And half an hour later, the armed response team finally got there. Around the planet when this happens, there's elite federal teams and elite military teams that show up 3 days later, hour and a half later, 30 minutes later, when it's all over. But 2 nations play the game by different rules. One is Israel, with armed people everywhere. The other is America. Posse taught us in the Second Amendment. This is what the Second Amendment was all about. To protect our loved ones, to protect our way of life. And so, folks, I bring you a message from a young Green Beret a month after 9/11, headed off to Afghanistan. And folks, I'll tell you what I think the next 9/11 is going to look like. If we predict future behavior based on past behavior, what they're thousands of times more likely to do than anything else is to hit elementary schools and daycares and maybe some buses on some dark day. Don't for a second think they wouldn't hit daycares. Boko Haram has wiped out daycares across northern Africa. Israel's had daycares hit on several occasions. Daycares are rare in Islamic culture. Where they appear, they attack them. And Kabul, Afghanistan, a while back, a daycare was hit. Don't for a second think they wouldn't hit the daycares. And be ready everywhere, but why wouldn't they go to the high school? Those are big, tough kids who can fight back. Whenever they go to high school full of big, tough football players, been taught run, hide, fight, when the elementary schools are wide open. And if they hit daycares, elementary schools tomorrow morning, and if they succeed, God forbid, the next day, not a parent in the nation will send the kid to school. Not a parent in the nation will send the kid to daycare. 9/11, they hijacked 4 planes. We shut every airport in North America for weeks. Millions are dropped out of the workforce. Schools shut, daycare shut. Our economy will be crippled. Millions are dropped out of the workforce. Every child, every family, every community in our nation will be rocked to their soul. And remember, hey, they're mad. They were mad when it began, and they're even madder now. And they want to hurt us, and they want to hurt us bad. And the way you hurt people is to kill their children. But if you're there dropping your kids off and you got your gun, you will kick their ass. And you won't just be saving your kids like you will be saving our way of life. There's only one answer to this threat, folks. To empower our citizens with the tools to protect them. We cannot put armed security in every daycare, in every school, in every school bus without empowering and entrusting our citizens. There's no other way. And so, folks, I'll bring you a message from Young Green Gray. It's a month after 9/11. You remember it's like the month after 9/11? The World Trade Center is still smoldering rubble. We're still estimating 4,000 dead. Remember those days? I'm training the first batch of spec ops headed back to Afghanistan. A young Special Forces sergeant, a young Green Beret, came up to me. He said, "Colonel, we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to kick their tail," except that's not exactly what he said. He said, "While we're there, you told those cops you teach, don't let them come kill my kids. Don't you let those bastards come hurt my children while I'm over there." Now, folks, our military believes in what they're doing. Ain't no one been drafted in this war. 4 years into the war, there was nobody enlisted before the war, got stuck with the war. For well over a decade, every single person in this war has raised the right hand to enlist or re-enlist in time of war. The last time we fought a war with 100% wartime volunteers was American Revolution. Started in 1812. We always have people who enlisted before the war, got stuck with the war. The Longros was in the draft. These kids are magnificent, folks. I admit, I'm biased. My son's a spec ops warrior with 9 combat tours, 3 Bronze Stars. My boy came home early from his 3rd combat tour, just in time to be there. His first baby was born, our 3rd grandchild. I told him it's good to be there when the baby's born, yeah? It's even better to be there when the baby's conceived. Whoa. Little piece of hard-earned Arkansas wisdom for you there, eh? You know what's best of all? You know what's best of all? For that baby to have a safe and free nation to grow up in. That's what they're doing this fight for. Those kids believe in what they're doing, folks. Ain't nobody made them go to this fight. They shut down the nations. They shut down the camps. They hunted them down across the planet. They kept them off your back with their blood and their lives for over 18 years. And they asked one thing: watch my 6, cover my back. Watch my 6, somebody may not know what that means. Right is 12 o'clock, left's 9 o'clock, right's 3 o'clock, where's my 6? Watch my 6, cover my back. Don't you let those bastards come hurt my spouse. Don't you let them come hurt my parents, and dear God most of all, do not let those sons of bitches come hurt my children. So folks, there's only one thing in the universe we can control, it's ourselves right now. And we can carry the gun, and we can seek the training, and we can be there at the moment of truth, and we can fight with all our heart and all of our might for the one thing that is the answer to this threat: to empower our citizens. You never win by taking away rights, you win by giving them more rights. And entrusting and empowering our citizens is the only way out faced with this threat. And so believe in who you are, believe in what you do. As folks, when we talk about keeping those schools safe, people say, well, now we need megabumps. We need national mobilization. No, we don't. We'll take all the mobilization we get, but I'll show you the problem is not money, our problem is denial. This is not my school safety class, folks. It's a couple of quick numbers. What keeps the school safe, keeps the house of worship safe, keeps our home safe, keeps our business safe. Whether a kid lights a fire or a terrorist lights a fire, the fundamentals of fire response and fire prevention remain the same. Whether fire happens in a house of worship or in a school, the fundamentals of response remain the same. So come with me to Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. 2 classrooms of first graders were slaughtered. Remember that one? Now, folks, 2 years after the Sandy Hook massacre, it was in the news. The parents of 2 of the dead kids are suing the school. Stop. Where have they been for the last 2 years? Where did all the other parents go? I'll tell you what I think happened, folks. With all my heart, I think it happens every time. One by one, they set the parents of the dead kids down, and they put a big check in front of them. They said, we made mistakes. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to relive it. We're going to give you a big check. You get a check once a year for the next 10 years. All we ask is to seal the record. GM, General Motors, kept the faulty ignition switch secret for a decade by sealing the record. It was cheaper for GM to pay off the dead people than it was to fix the problem. It's blood money, it's hush money. That's what happened to me. It was the only explanation. Didn't respect the parents who took the money to get on with their lives. But also respect the parents. After 2 years of negotiation, said, you don't get it. We don't want your blood money. We don't want your hush money. We want the world to know what you did wrong. And we don't ever want it to happen again. So here's what they're being sued for. Number 1, no laminate film on the glass in the front part. Our door's locked. We buzz people in. It's glass. All he had to do was shoot out the glass, step in and murder 26 people. Since the 1960s, we've had the technology put that laminate film on that glass. Now, folks, there truly is one brand a notch better than the others. I put it on my house, I put it on my grandkids' school. And folks, they will tell you that if you can't make normal glass bulletproof, these people do. A normal glass, I shot it with my 9mm, shot it on 45, stops it dead. 5.56, 223 rifle, punch a hole through it. All that comes out the other side is spray that won't even go through a piece of cardboard. www.lear-armor.com. About $25 a square foot. You can beat on it, you can shoot it, you ain't getting through it. Half the cost of the building goes in the fire code. A couple $100 of laminate film on the front door is too hard. If you're on the jury, would you be enraged? Now, the second thing they've been sued for, there was no way to lock the classroom door from the inside. The only way to lock the door was step in the hallway, expose yourself to the killer, everybody in the hallway died. Have the fine motor control, put the key in the lock. Now, there's a simple answer being used nationwide. Have those classroom doors locked all the time. I train Baltimore schools, I train Chicago schools. They tell me every classroom door is locked all the time. Proper overlock, shut lock your choice. Kick out the prop, shut the door. Boom, we're secure that faster. It costs nothing to have those doors locked. But folks, even better is to have a latch on the inside of the door. So 2 months ago, California passed a law mandating a latch on the inside of every classroom door. A great idea. On the inside, you throw a latch. From the outside, the guys who need to get in, and you've got something called a key. It's a piece of technology we had for about 500 freaking years. But California mandated a latch on the inside of every classroom door. Not one single news report. I know about it because I worked with the people who got attacked. Not one news report. No newspaper, no radio, no television. Nobody talked about a major initiative that demand in every school. Because it's all about the guns. And we can't change anything unless we deal with the guns. Not only is a gun issue not work, it distracts us from things that could work. An entire state takes a reasonable and good course, and nobody even heard about it. Because they go around and talk about the things we could be doing. Nothing's going to happen until we get those guns. Oh, like Mexico. How's that working out for Mexico? Yeah? Folks, I was in Laredo, Texas, right on the border there. Just about 3 weeks ago. I had a school auditorium. You get a standing ovation, the school people, and I just asked them, how's all that gun control working out for Mexico? And they got it. They got it. And so, folks, laminate film on any glass on the door beside the door. Internal doors, external doors. You don't have everything, although there's a value in that. But laminate glass on any glass, laminate film, any glass on the door or beside the door. Where you shoot up the glass and reach it open the door. House of worship, schools, whatever. And you've got to be able to secure that place quickly from the inside. A latch is a good way, keep it unlocked, kick out the prop, and boom. But one other thing happened in Sandy Hook Elementary School. And those two classrooms, the only ones that survived, where a handful of kids made a dash for the door. If we don't teach the children what to do, then we're teaching them to do nothing. And that's what most of them did. And nationwide, we're teaching these kids what to do. It's a lot like stop, drop, and roll. Y'all remember stop, drop, and roll in school? Did you know that was very controversial? People said, you can't teach that to kindergartners. They'll have nightmares about catching a fire. No, they have nightmares. How many of y'all were taught stop, drop, and roll? How many of y'all went home had nightmares about catching on fire? Even if 1,000 did. Even if 1,000 did, it's just not that big a deal. Yeah? So folks, I'm telling you, we got to teach those kids what to do. And there's a model out there that, you know, Alice is good, Alert is good. They're all good, but they all revolve around a simple model that I want to give you here. Run, hide, fight. Run, hide, fight is not a sequence. It's a set of options. Just to make it clear, let's jumble it up. Fight. Hide. Run. I'm a cop. And I'm home, got my clothes on, I got a gun on. This is always my first choice right there. And folks, I truly honor and respect and appreciate the open carry movement. America's got to get used to people with guns, and I appreciate them doing that. But as far as I'm concerned, the open carry guy, he's my decoy. Bad guys are to shoot him. I'm going to shoot the bad guy and reach him to it. I mean, they truly, truly are willing to accept that risk, and I respect them for doing it. This is just me. Don't be the decoy. Untuck that shirt. That incredible element of surprise. Never give up the incredible tactical element of surprise. So again, I'm not disrespecting those guys. They're truly doing something important. It's just my personal choice to not be the decoy, right? But folks, this is always our first choice. And I want to talk to you later about what happened to that. And when people chose not to go in circumstances. But too many people's only answer is run away. I told my kid, you get out of there, you run away. I don't care what anybody says. Man, run away in the hallway like Sandy Hook and Parkland and run in the hallway, die? Run out the fire exit like Jonesboro, run out the fire exit and die? No, when we tell people, if you're in a safe place, stay there. And provided you can't shoot out the glass and reach and open the door, in a room with the door locked is one of the safest places on the planet. Absolutely fireproof, designed to survive tornadoes and mortar explosions under the supervision of a trained adult. We do not leave that room without a good reason. Provided you can't shoot out the glass, reach and open the door. In a room with the door shut is a very safe place. If it's not shut, get out of there and have a plan. I trained the park police in Grand Canyon a while back. They asked me to do a site survey at an elementary school tucked away in the corner of Grand Canyon. As always, I learned more from them than they did from me. A little first grade teacher told me, she said, I have a classroom full of precious first graders, and my classroom door is locked all the time. She said, nobody on the planet can stop me from locking my door. They can fire me, but they will never stop me from keeping that door locked. She said, if somebody's busting down that door, I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to break that window. I'm going to rip down the curtains and throw them over the glass and have my kids out the window one by one. Now, it was the ground floor. I was in love. If I were a happy right man of 44 years, I'd propose on the spot. Every teacher in America would be thinking that way. It's a very foolish rabbit that only has one exit in their hole. Folks, I trained a school district in Illinois. They gave every teacher a sticker that said Plan B. Put it on the when you plan to go out. Have a plan. If you're in a safe place, stay there. If it's not safe, get out there. And when all else fails, fight. I got two little grandkids that live right next door. I never know what can I do for them. Well, a couple years back, they were both elementary school. They sat them down on the kitchen table with some books in front of them. I said, pretend you're sitting in your classroom at school. Pretend Grandpa's a bad man. Come in your school and start hurting people. That's your signal. If anybody is hurting people, you get out there. Throw the first book at me, throw the second book where you're running, get past me, and get out this door. No. Do it again. Throw it in my face. Throw it hard. See, well, mark my face. I can't hurt anybody. That was fun, Grandpa. Let's do that again. I'm sorry, we live in a world, we got to teach this to our kids. We made this world, we can change this world. But right now, we got to keep those little ones safe. And if we don't teach what they do, we're teaching them to do nothing. But what about those teachers? Folks, it's wired into our genes to die for our children, especially women. The Sandy Hook massacre, the first one to die was Principal Dawn Hochman, unarmed educator who simply charged the killer. What did she think she was going to do? Her rifle in his hand was shot out the glass and she charged him. The second one to die was his school psychologist, Betty Spurgeon, right beside her. The third one to die was teacher Victoria Soda, blocking the door with her body. What did they think they were going to do? Well, folks, I had an elementary school principal tell me, I will die for my children tomorrow. Give me something beside my keys in hand when that day comes. Those words on me. I will die for my children tomorrow. Give me something besides my keys in hand when that day comes. So folks, nationwide, we're arming educators with enormous success. Now folks, the president talked about armed educators and the media mocked him. How about giving us some freaking news and letting us decide? Folks, the entire state of Utah has been doing it for over 20 years, ever since Columbine. You know how many? Nobody knows. It's completely decentralized. Nobody's keeping track. It's the individual principals called. And they believe there's one or two people in every school that ought to be carrying a gun. Folks, I trained a school district in Massachusetts that were arming educators. The superintendent was retired spec ops. The elementary school principals were retired military police and a reserve cop. Is that not a no-brainer thing to be carrying in your schools? And there's people like that in schools nationwide. The state of Ohio, and Jim Irvin, one of my personal heroes, one of the great leaders in America, making incredible things happen. The state of Ohio, after the Sandy Hook massacre, asked for volunteers to be trained and armed in the classroom. Today, 85% of all counties in Ohio have some armed educators. How we all know that? Ain't that something I don't know? With 100% success. 3 months ago, Dr. John Lott, Harvard scholar, released a study. There has never been a homicide in the school, during the school day, with armed educators. 100% success. The greatest achievement, the crime that didn't happen, because there are people there that can shoot back. Folks, I believe every state in America has some armed educators, with 2 exceptions. California had 2 school districts with armed educators. They've been doing it for a decade with great success. Last year, California passed a law to stop them from doing it. New York passed a law 2 months ago to stop any educators from doing that. I have no doubt there was somebody in New York that was doing it, and they brought it to a screeching halt. I'm not saying it's right for everybody. I deeply respect everybody's right to make their own decision. But those words haunt me. I will die for my children tomorrow. Give me some my key in my hand when that day comes. 100% success for 20 years across the nation. And the media mocks it and acts like it's some goofball, wacko idea. In Ohio, Jim started a program, and he'll tell you more about it when we wrap up for the day. I got to head off and grab a plane. I've been on the road for 10 days. It's my 10th day on the road. I made 7 presentations. I'm getting home tonight. The God will visit me, and underway's waiting for me. But Jim will tell you about Fast Track. It's faculty and staff training for emergency response. It's a 3-day course, and it's dynamite. Initially, it costs nothing. I tell my schools, don't count on more money. You count on less money. Every time one of these school massacres happens, more people homeschool, they private school. Every time something bad happens, you lose more voters. They will not vote for your school bond. They will not vote for your money. Don't count on more money. Count on less money. Oh, we got a cop at every school. That's really good. It is good. It is a good thing. But can you afford to do it for the next 20 years? When nothing happens for 20 years, what do we need these guys for? Nothing's ever happened. What do you need a fire sprinkler for? Nobody's died for a fire in 60 years in American schools, yes? Don't count on more money, count on less money, folks. And being able to empower our teachers is a powerful tool that we can tap into. Jim had a London Times reporter take his 3-day class. Never had it done in his life. At the end of the 3 days, he said, I never thought I would say this, but I am now a supporter. If this is the kind of training we're giving those teachers, I think it's a no-brainer. I'm a supporter. How many else saw that in the national news? How many else saw that being picked up? The New York, the London Times, it takes an American class and goes back endorsing the program. Why wasn't that in the national news? Understand? So I don't know the answer, folks. But as a minimum, give them all pepper spray. Folks, there's a crime happening. The only unusual thing about the ones I tell you about is they got in the news. Killeen, Texas. A pervert goes in the unlocked back door of the elementary school. Anybody want to stagger in the back door of your kid's school? He hides in one of the girls' bathrooms. Hides in a stall. Wait till one little girl in the bathroom comes out and rapes the little girl. Oh, the back door of the elementary school in Killeen, Texas is locked now. Been fired, fined, professionally, financially, psychologically destroyed. Because the back door is unlocked. Any idiot can walk in that door. Well, it recently happened in Kingston, Ontario. I do a lot of work in Canada. Again, this one never got in the news. I'm amazed the one in Killeen got in the news. Folks, cops in Kingston, Ontario told me in their elementary school there happened to be a teacher walking past the girl's bathroom and heard the little girl in the bathroom scream. Teacher runs in the bathroom screaming. Here's a guy, got this elementary girl pinned down in the process of gagging and stripping this little girl. The kid's screaming, the teacher's screaming, he stands up, walks out. To this day, they have no idea who it is. And they're lucky he didn't punch the stuffings out of that teacher and continue his crime. What's the downside with the pervert? Nobody in the building with women and children. A sign out front says, we promise only you can shoot back. What's the downside? But she had a pepper spray in her church. It could have been a totally different deal. Folks, all these best practices I'm recommending. Nobody's paying a nickel for saying so. But go to Amazon.com and Sabre Bread, S-A-B-R-E, Sabre Bread. They're American-made, great quality control. Sabre Red Pepper Gel is what's being used nationwide. It's a straight stream. It doesn't cross-contaminate like silly putty with allergies. Do you understand? And it stains their face. It half blinds them. And it's staggering out the door with this stain in his face, half blind. At least they got something. I trained a whole school district, Alabama, Mississippi, giving a can of pepper spray to every single teacher. My home church has got Sunday school, but they also have a daycare throughout the week. And every one of the daycare workers, Sunday school workers, nursery workers have pepper spray. The insurance company said, great idea. Just be sure you give them a class and document the class. That's all the insurance company has. Good thing, good plan. Today, the waiting list for that daycare is months long. That's the one that parents want to send their kids to. Do you understand? And they got the laminate film. They got the locked doors. They got the pepper spray. And they got a pastor who's retired Air Force Spec Ops security guy, one of the best shots I've ever met, who carries all the time and is there all day long. And so, folks, there's things we can be doing right now. You got loved ones in a school, you get a can of pepper spray and you tell them to carry it. Oh, it's against the rules. Never been enforced. Never once. Oh, you got pepper spray, you're fired. Never once. At the moment of truth, you know what they're going to say? Thank God you had pepper spray in your pocket. Yeah. And so, folks, we got to empower those citizens to do what needs to be done to protect our children. But I want to talk about those of us who plan to go in and what we can do. Cops, others who plan to go in. We're going to put together all the pieces. But once again, it's 5 past the hour. We've been in a tail for an hour. It is definitely time for that 10-minute break. Gear levels down, cabin levels up. Come back with the rock and roll.